in this marker, and they work like function in any programming language. So you can embed in a marker everything that you would put in a function in a software, whether it is creating always the same SQL with some parameters, that's the basic thing, or passing a name of a schema and going and look at what tables are there and then doing something with what is there. So you can code it. It's a function that you can code, and then it can return either just a value or it can return a piece of SQL that then can become the SQL that you fire on top of your data platform.
Okay. So if
And this, you see, it turns a tool that runs SQL in the end into a meta tool that can generate the SQL that then is being fired on top of your data platform.
Okay, and this SQL, as you're saying, it can go into function here and there. So does DBT has its own workflows as well, or you have to use external workflow or orchestrator as a
Well, there is a kind of a inherent workflow and is a directed acyclic graph. So the great thing, so DBT is an opinionated tool. They have made some choices, and while in SQL you have no limitation in creating loops in dependency, because you can have a script that writes to a table, another script that writes to the same table, or some table that then refer back and write into the other table. So in SQL, there is no limitation on recurrence between tables.
yeah.
In DBT, they made a very clear and I think very good and logical decision that you can only create a directed acyclic graph. So dependency can only go one way. And so you can't never reference something that is going to depend from you. You can't have a loop.
Yes.
So in that sense, it's very good because what you do is that the code that you write in what dbt calls models is, in general, it could be just a very simple select SQL query, a model. It's what creates a table or a view. And there you write SQL, or you use function that is macros to write part of all of your SQL. But the idea is that you put there all the logic that have to produce the result for that table. Whether it is one part of logic, two parts, you can have union all, you can have all the power of SQL, but if you have to put in the table, it has to be inside that model. And
Okay.
then that model will be used by something down the line and something down. And because DBT knows the dependency, another very powerful feature is that you don't have to orchestrate. The orchestration is automatic because he has the dependency graph. So he knows where to start, something that does not depend on anything. So he can start running those queries, and then he will run the one that depend on them, and so on, until it gets the end of this graph where you have the thing that depends from the most. One, two, or
So
so.
it looks like a workflow in
It
the
is, it pretty much automatically executes the dependencies in your data models. So the workflow is that you can decide which models to run, and then it will run in the right order so that you build first what is needed downstream.
Okay. So when you say model, you are referring to data pipelines.
A model is a single, pretty much you can think like a single query, a single table. So how to build a single step in a pipeline that probably do some transformation. So let's make the most common example, okay, so that everybody can understand us better. So we have some data in a CSV file. We want to load someplace. We do some little transformation. We want to save the history, and then maybe we start to do some more real transformation. So what you would do in DBT? The first thing is that ingestion, you either do with an external tool or you can do it with a markup. For example, what I wrote in my book, and then I call it a pragmatic data platform, you can use very simple macro, even just by writing YAML at the end, that can take this data from a stage and load it into a table. That just load as is. That is the usual ingestion step. Landing table, so put it there. That's is not yet a model because it's a marker, but mentally you can think like a model. Then you generally have a staging model.
Mhm.
So in generally, I build a view that reads from this landing table and does the stupid simple adaptation So you change the names of the column to some names that are readable. You parse what is text into numbers or dates or timestamps. You unpack things that might be in a single block of text or that might be nested. So you do the thing to make the data usable without changing the semantic, right?
That's a standardization. Okay.
And that's one model. It's just one query that will build, in my case, 99% of the time, a view that reads the landing table and make the data usable. And then I would do another model that takes these usable data and save it, historicize it. So checks what are new version of each entity and save only the new one. So you will have a landing table that is a macro, not really a model, but mentally like a model, a staging model that produce a view, and then a history model that produce a long-lived table that is incrementally, where you incrementally add the data. And then down the line, you can have other models that you start add to make the business transformation, where you apply business rule.
Yeah. So these are in data engineering, normally you call it data pipeline. You are calling it as a model, which is fair.
Yeah, but a data pipeline usually is, so I would call, for example, a data pipeline the ingestion, staging, historization. So that's a small data pipeline that takes a CSV file and produce the historicized version of these CSVs into a table in your data platform. So generally, data pipeline has a multiple step. That's why I'm saying so.
Oh,
A
yeah.
model might be one step in a pipeline.
Got your point. So before we jump, because as we are talking about the landing area, one thing I read online is DBT works within one data store. Means if you want to connect to source system, you want to transform it and push it to target system, it doesn't do that. It's
No.
still within one database. So you have to have another tool.
Well, we could start to put asterisks around because in the end, DBT can do whatever your data platform can do. So if you are, for example, let's go back to my Oracle time. You might connect to an Oracle database, but you might have DB links so that you could read or write to other databases. So in that sense, yes, it's true, you connect to one, but through SQL, you could do things in other databases. And the same is, for example, with the Snowflake. So in Snowflake, you connect to only one account, one database in one account. But because Snowflake can read files from where you have an authorization, that's how you can do import. Because in the end, you just issue a copy into a macro. And then you can, that's how you read file, how you ingest with dbt. Is not SQL in a way. You have to put its copy into, so it's SQL, but you can't execute because the result is not that you want to store in the table, is not the result that the copy into does. The copy into gives you the list of files that you have ingested. Yes. So what you want is the content of this file to be loaded in some table. So that's why it goes in a macro and does not usually go into a model. And you see, the same, it might be because, for example, now in Snowflake, you can have Python and you can use Python, like they are making easier even to connect to external sources and grab the data. So I would say it's not far-fetched to say that it's probably closer than farther a time when you could actually use these Snowpark or Python-based abilities of Snowflake, but Databricks could do the same, most probably, and connect to another system, download the data, and then load it.
Okay,
so
now the question comes, sorry, because what you're saying is there's a separate tool or utility which is pulling from source to landing, and then from landing to staging, because DBT reads from staging table only. So you load into staging table, whatever table, and then DBT reads from table and write into another table into the same data store. And now if you want to push it outside, then another utility will push it outside. So now it's three activities. So where is the orchestrator? I need to bring another orchestrator up there, which will run this job to source to landing, then run DBT jobs, and then run the third one to push it outside. So it's a separate orchestrator.
Yes, so I would say DBT, as it is now most common, start from the files that you have exported
Okay, now
from
it can work.
your,
Okay.
you can already start from the files because it's very easy. It's trivial. You need really 3 lines of YAML to do the ingestion. So you can ingest the data into what I call landing table.
Okay.
Then, and at the same time, if you use, for example, Snowflake, but Databricks is the same, you
Yes.
can also dump from the content from a table down into files in whatever platform you have connected to your data platform. So, for example, I have a lot of customers that have been using Azure. So they have Azure storage where they
Text storage, yeah.
save the files from their operational system, and you can do that in a variety of ways. You can even just run from a command line pretty much. So you can even have a cron job that really exports the CSV or whatever format works for you from the operational system into a file that is then saved into a place that is shared with the Snowflake, where Snowflake can access, and then you can start reading from that. Or in such cases, maybe many cases, they also use Data Factory to actually simplify the reading
Yes.
and then saving the file into not a bucket, but the equivalent of a bucket.
Yes.
And the same when you want to write it down. So you can easily take the content of whatever table or even whatever query and just dump it into files in a container that you have connected to your data platform. So I would say it's very easy to connect to file systems, whatever your data platform can naturally read. And now that you start to have these, not Hibernate, how it's called, this new table, I always mix with the names
Delta
because
table, Delta
in
table
Snow,
and Databricks.
no, in Snowflake database, they have these, it's not Hibernate table, how it's there called?
In Meta
Uh,
or
the interchangeable format
okay.
that it's too much winterish names now. How is it called? Uh, I'm bad with names. So,
No,
so
I'm
but
also
I suppose you got it.
yeah.
So these
So in nutshell, but never mind, it's okay.
Apache, how is it called? It's from Apache
So,
project.
you are talking about Voodoo. Is Voodoo
No,
iceberg?
no. Let me. I will try to figure it out because I was even again reading today. So
Never mind, you can recall it later. No worries.
iceberg. Yeah.
Iceberg. Yeah, I just mentioned
Yes,
iceberg.
iceberg tables. So you see, it's the fact that there are too many hibernate, everything is winterish around Snowflake. So
Yeah, there is snow tables, there is delta tables, there is
yeah,
iceberg,
yes.
Voodoo. Yeah,
But for
so
example, with the iceberg table, it's very easy. So because you can read and write there, and then other platform can read and use them the same way. So it's making it even easier to pass data across different platforms. And in a way, DBT can work on those iceberg table as they are local.
yeah, which is fine. Okay, so let's go step by step. As we are saying here is another utility pulls from source to landing. DBT can read from landing files, load into delta tables or snow tables or iceberg or Hadoop, and it can also export into a file. When it can export into a file, it can go into a Parquet file or object story anywhere. So end of the day, you need an orchestrator, cron jobs or ADF orchestration to run this. Correct? The whole end-to-end, you can say a journey, right? Because our source data need to come in landing before DBT starts. So
Well,
within,
if you use DBT Cloud, you have an orchestration in DBT Cloud.
okay,
If
and
you
that
use DBT
orchestration,
Core,
yeah,
if you use DBT Core, you have to rely on a totally external orchestrator.
okay, fair enough, fair enough.
So,
So now I go to the next step. Now what we are saying here is it is like this. Okay, fine. Now tell me about this one that uh, when so so DBT itself has jobs, right? When it reads from one you are calling data model, it runs different data models, right? So it has its own jobs. So orchestration tool will be running these jobs. Tell me if I'm in data, if I'm in Snowflake, I have a table in Snowflake as a source. I have a table in Snowflake as a target, and then I have a DBT job. Tomorrow, I want to migrate this to Databricks. In Databricks, I create the same source table, same target table. Do I have to create DBT job again? Or I can copy paste from Snowflake environment into DBT,
Well,
just run
the
it.
DBT job is not really is something that is really lightweight because I told you so. The job is not really a job like you would do in normal ETL tools or things. It's just pretty much declaring what you want to build, because the job is already inside the way that the models are connected. So it's the dependency. So for example, you have two ways to do what you are saying. So one is okay, I know the target, and so you can run a job. For example, it is as simple as say dbt build plus minus s plus the name of the target. So it means build everything that is needed to get here. So it will go back from in the dependency graph from this one and find all the dependency, and then it will start building from the start of the dependency graph, build everything so that you have everything updated here.
Yeah.
That's also a way that you don't need to create many different jobs in DBT.
Sorry, let me rephrase myself. Let me make it very simple. I want to do a select command from one table and insert command with a select command inside. So insert, read from table one and write into table.
You don't do that in DBT. That's the point. You don't have two models. You just have one model in that case.
One model, but this is a job now.
No, it's not a job. You don't have to do a job for that. You just write the SQL. That's the point. That's what I'm saying. It's lightweight. You just read the SQL and it's just a select, not even the insert. So if you have table, let's say table one, and you want to do some transformation and write in table two, what you write is that you just do one model that will create table two, and over there you just write select, let's say uppercase ID from table one. That's it. Only that SQL. So whenever you can run that model alone, or you can run that because then some other table, some other model might use table two. So when table two needs to be run, refreshed, because someone depending needs it, it will be run. And so the job is really just saying run the dependency, either run all, and then you run all according to the dependency, or run the dependency to get to some table, or starting from one table forward. So that's what I was saying. One way was, let's say, you wanted to build a table two. So you say you create a job or just run a command. It's not really needed to. dbt build minus s plus table two.
Okay.
Then it will probably create table one. If it doesn't exist, you need to create table one. If you have table one as a model in dbt, if it's a source, it's already there. Otherwise, it will create table one and then run the table two. So it will run both. But for example, what you could also do is that you want to say run everything that depends on table one. So you do dbt build minus s table one plus. So you put the plus on the right, so it means from here onward. And so this will run table one and then table two because it depends, but you might have any other table. And then if after table two there is something else, it will continue to build everything that depends. So that's why a job in dbt pretty much is a way to express refresh a set of dependencies. The easiest is dbt build, so refresh, so run all the SQL for all the dependency in this project, or you just maybe take a folder, so just for the models that are in this folder, and things like that. So
okay. So when
that's the way, for example, if you have a data mart, the common thing. So you have a data mart, you want to refresh that data mart every 4 hours. So every 4 hours, you have a job that you have defined. So let's do it, not real code, but pseudo code. So it would be something like dbt build minus s, and minus s means select. Select what? This data mart, okay? Minus s data mart x. Then, and with a plus in front, so that it knows build everything that is needed to refresh the content of this data mart. And then whenever you run that job, depend on